Hello, everybody. A few minutes later than planned, but here we are back with another My Music. It's Graham Cove here. In a minute, I'm going to be speaking to Dave Darby. But first, let's have a little video from our new sponsors, Analog Trash.
Keep on, don't stop. Keep on, don't stop. Keep on, don't stop. Keep on, don't stop.
There you go. And I don't think it matters what record label you're on. I'm sure we all echo the sentiments of supporting independent music, do we not, Dave?
Absolutely.
Yeah. There you go. So if you join, anyone wants to find out more, analogtrash.com, join the supporters club. You get everything. You get everything that any artist on the Analog Trash produces. You even get discounts to get into events and merchandise and all of that malarkey as well. Very, very good. So Dave, talk to us.
Hello.
Hello. Where are you coming from today?
New York, New York.
Ah,
Yeah.
So good you had to say it twice.
I know, exactly.
Yeah.
Very
Yeah.
special.
How long have you been there? Is this somewhere you grew up or
Yeah, no, I actually have a strange history. I grew up in Hawaii, of all
Okay.
places, Honolulu, Hawaii. And but I've been living in New York for most of my adult life. Kind of moved to the East Coast for school and I go back to Hawaii, but I've called New York my home for, I don't know, over 25 years or something like that. Stopped counting.
Yeah. Good place, a good place to find musicians.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
It really is. Yeah.
Which is something that you obviously like to do. You have this what do you call it? A collective?
Yeah, I guess so. It's just a group of friends that I've kind of met over the years who played in different groups and written music with, and really just people who enjoy being together and making music together. It's funny, like years ago I was working on a record and was just doing kind of solo stuff, and a producer I was working with was like, this is all good, but it's a little bit boring. It's just why don't you get some friends to play on it? And I kind of took his advice and went in all the way with it, and just kind of it's become a group that I'm proud to say it's actually it really is a genuine social scene. It's not just a broken social scene, I guess.
Very good.
Yeah.
Although I presume you quite like their music.
I do, yeah. And it's a similar kind of vibe. And I, through, I don't know, degrees of separation, I know some of those people, and kind of similar thing. They're friends, and they've been. Are they still doing it? I haven't really kept up with it. It's been a while.
I think last year they released kind of a B-sides and rarities thing. I don't know whether I've seen anything new from them for a little while, but a great collective as well. Perhaps you could play swapsies with them.
Yeah, that'd be nice. Yeah, just bring it all together, like just build the bridge between here and Toronto.
Yeah,
fantastic.
I'll swap you this musician for that one for this week.
It'll be like the January transfer window, actually.
Yeah,
in the Premier League.
That's exactly what it would be like.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, which manager would you be then?
Which manager would I be?
Yeah.
Gosh, that's a really good question. Like a current manager, or just
Well, no. Okay, let's go for any manager in football history.
Well, I guess I'll just take Sir Alex Ferguson then. I don't know. It just seems like a. I'm not as. But I'm not. I wouldn't like. Didn't he like throw a hairdryer at somebody? That's not. I wouldn't do that. So I'm just trying. I think I'm a bit nicer.
No.
Yeah, but I'm trying to
Or
think
you
of.
might do just
You never
in
know.
a nice way, just like here, quick hair dryer.
Toss it. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think you need to dry your hair a bit. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
okay. There you go.
not in an
Yeah,
aggressive way, just I see you're in need of a hair dryer
yeah,
type of
yeah.
way.
Maybe like Pep Guardiola seems like a nice guy. Maybe I'd be like him. I don't know.
Okay, no, well
Yeah.
that's cool. Where did the name of the group come from?
Oh,
Gramercy
okay.
Arms.
So, yeah. So it's actually kind of funny. It's a section of Manhattan, and it's a kind of it's funny. I think this is true in any city or any town. Really, you get a bunch of real estate people together, and they come up with these kind of fancy names for things. But Gramercy is actually something that's been around for a long time. I mean, the origins of New York are Dutch as well as English.
Mm-hmm.
And Gramercy is like, it actually is a corruption of I've heard of a Dutch word for the broken sea, or the broken river, Gramercy. And I guess there used to be a little river that ran through this part of the city back when it was farmland. So there you go.
Okay, that's a nice little story.
Yeah.
It's not, as some people might be thinking who are slightly dyslexic, a little app that you put on top of Word and checks your spellings and grammar.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Grammarly Arms. We're sponsored by Grammarly.
Grammarly Arms.
But then we'd have to have good grammar, which I'm not sure. Yeah.
My mind always does that when I look at words.
Oh,
I don't know about you, but
yeah,
it looks at words and goes, oh, that's similar to that.
yeah,
And then it kind of changes it. It's because I'm actually dyslexic myself.
Oh.
Are you neurodiverse in any way, or you not that you know of?
Yeah, not that I know of, I think. But I do also. I mean, I'm really interested in words and wordplay, I guess. So maybe that has something to do with it. I don't know.
Yeah,
I love bad puns. I mean, who doesn't? But I guess a lot of people don't.
absolutely. Does that have an impact on your lyric writing, song titles as well? Then
I think so. I mean, it's funny. I guess probably one of the people who's the most well known in our collective is Lloyd, and he and I have been friends. I've been making music with him for years, and we both. I mean, he clearly in his music, there's a lot of that, and I think that's why we're friends, largely. I think because we just are obsessed with wordplay, and we text each other really stupid names for like stage names for artists.
you?
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Like some of mine are like, I had a trying to think like a goth stage name, which was Rick Ghastly.
Rick Ghastly.
Yeah,
that's fantastic.
Just really just horrible.
These are great names for checking into hotels with.
Exactly.
Yeah. We actually did that last year with a couple of guests on this program, where I actually had them do little cuts before they came off. But it was actually, they had to change the name of their band and come up with an abstract name for the album. But that band came up, it would have recorded. So could you do that?
Well, I mean, it's a little bit of, it's an easy one because I know. Well, I don't know if I'm answering your question, but maybe I'll take it in a different direction. Which is, Rick Ghastly, performs in a goth band that's called Morning Glory with a U.
And what would the name of their most famous album be?
Oh God. I mean, Never Gonna Dig You Up, I guess. I don't know.
Never Gonna Dig You Up. That's brilliant.
You got to have some cave, or grave. Yeah,
I think that's fantastic. Yeah. Well, actually, when you look at the song list for this Deleted Scene album, once you get past Yesterday's Girl and Deleted Scene, the next set of songs, you could actually read. I mean, if it came up on like a Spotify list, you know where you make those kind of Spotify lists,
right?
Where they read like a letter or a poem or
Yeah.
you know, they actually read like something. So
Right.
that it actually works if you listen to it. Like, feel your way. I hope I'm not too late. It's hard not to love you. Never say anything.
There you go.
Do you see what I'm saying? It's really good, isn't it?
Words
Yeah.
to live by, I think. I guess.
Yeah. So, and it's all tricky love stuff.
It is. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's really good. Thank you.
Yeah. I think you might have to do that now. You have to make up a little Spotify list with some of your songs from there. And then maybe interject with some other songs just to make it into a full list that actually is a story.
Right. And that's great because I am really horrible at sequencing records, and now I have a way to do it.
That's always a good way to do it, isn't
I know.
it?
This is already win-win. It's it's only 8:48 a.m. New York time, and I started my day with helpful wisdom.
There you go. So tell me, who's playing on this particular record?
Oh God, it's a long list. Well, so
I'll just name a few of the people.
Yeah, no, I mean, I mentioned Lloyd. Yeah, exactly. He and I co-wrote a song, and he played guitar on a couple places here and there. Kevin March, who is an old friend of mine, he and I were in a band called the Dam Builders together in the 90s, and he plays in Guided by Voices. And he was kind of integral to it. He played drums on all the songs. Trying to think, there's a lot of people. Rainey Ortica, somebody I've been playing with for a long time, who also was the original bass player in Jonas Policewoman.
Oh, right.
Yeah. And Joan, this is actually the first Gramercy Arms record that Joan hasn't been on. She's an old friend and former bandmate. And through her, I actually hooked up with Reveal Records, which put out kind of previous records in the UK. Doug Gillard, who is in Guided by Voices, and also plays in Not a Surf sometimes. Fantastic guitarist. So many people. There's an Australian artist named Mark Lazat who performs under the name Diesel. He's like a big artist down there. His band was in the 80s was called Johnny Diesel and the Injectors, who were like kind of a big.
I remember that.
Yeah. And he actually, through him, we co-wrote some songs for Jimmy Barnes actually back in the day.
Really?
Very Aussie cred there. I just have to drop the Jimmy Barnes name so any Aussies won't beat me up or anything.
No.
Yeah.
You've been burning the midnight oil, haven't you?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's
same period, same era.
Yeah, same, definitely.
I actually got to see them live once.
Oh yeah, me too. I mean, growing up in Hawaii, we had a lot of exposure to Australian music on the radio and bands coming over, because I think back then, for whatever reason, I don't think it really makes sense anymore, but you had a lot of bands that would just kind of stop over in Honolulu. So we saw them a number of times, and so I was exposed to all kinds of things, like it was in the US it was called Angel City, but I guess it was called the Angels. And like Rose Tattoo, which is Jimmy Barnes, or not Jimmy Barnes, it was Cold Chisel. But anyway, I have this geeky knowledge of all this like Aussie rock, like just through that.
That's cool.
But I guess I've become much more of a kind of on the spectrum of like, go-betweens kind of person, I think, or something like that,
Yeah.
But yeah.
Who would, if we rifled through your music collection, who would be the surprise in there?
The surprise. Wow. What's a surprise? I mean, maybe things that people file under guilty pleasure. And I'm trying to think, like, what is a guilty pleasure, or that would be at all surprising. I mean, I kind of, I do have a soft spot for some like kind of grandiose, cheesy 70s rock, I guess.
Okay.
And it, I guess like somebody like, and I'm just throwing, okay. I don't think it's at all like, I'm a huge Thin Lizzy fan. I don't think that's surprising in any way to anybody, or should be. But I also like things like, I guess I was re-immersing myself in something I listened to when I was much younger. It was the band UFO.
Oh wow,
Yeah.
yeah,
I mean, their live record is actually really good.
it's
It's like
very good. Yeah,
yeah, and they have I'm sure like I don't I don't think people in the States are as familiar with them, but they're kind of their prog beginnings, and the psych kind of music that they made like back in the day is really, really interesting.
yeah.
Um,
I think everybody I think everybody's got something that's quite surprising in their record
yeah,
collection.
yeah.
You know,
I'm kind of stumped to find. I mean, I just listened to a lot of stuff.
I was really pleased to see yesterday, for example. I just read that they're just re-releasing, because you can't get hold of it for love nor money at the moment, or you can if you pay a fortune. But they're just re-releasing 3 Feet High and Rising by
Oh
De
wow,
La
that's
Soul.
nice.
You remember that one?
Oh yeah. No, and it's funny. I mean, I mean that I especially know that era of hip hop, and then I kind of like weirdly, I think I don't know, just I was so immersed in being in a rock band in the 90s, and I missed a lot of the 90s stuff that I think De La Soul sort of engendered.
Yeah.
And came back to it and was like, why was I not listening to this? Like all of this was incredible. Like all the everything Far Side, and I mean, which actually that's kind of where I picked it up again, but I guess I had missed some of the God, why am I spacing on seminal
I just
90s?
love the play in that kind of music. That's what was quite fun, really. And I always like play. How much is in terms of your own writing? How much when you're putting down lyrics is a bit tongue in cheek?
Oh, a lot of it, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I try to have fun with writing music. I mean, I think I tend to write a lot of things that are, I think a criticism I would give myself is they just tend to be. I kind of write things that are more sort of like love songs, which is I don't know. I just gravitate towards things related to romance, I guess, and love, and that's a very worn terrain, I think, in a way. So like, how can you say something novel about it? I think you kind of have to go there with something that's sort of tongue-in-cheek, or a play on words, or something that's kind of self-deprecating, I think, in a way. And I think
and there's also when I was listening to this album as well, that there's almost a sense in which you're sort of putting yourself back in time a little bit.
Yeah.
A little bit like, because I felt a little bit like Stuart does with Belle and Sebastian.
Oh wow, I'll take that.
Yeah. Where he talks about things almost, especially on more of the early albums, but talks about things more from a sort of a school time perspective or whatever. Kind of a naivety.
Yeah.
In order to get out the message.
Yeah. Phoebe Summer Squash, who plays in Gramercy Arms, is an old friend of theirs, and I mean, I'm just been a huge fan of their music for a long time, and I do see that. Yeah, I mean, and that kind of runs through their music, really. Yeah, I was like the other day I was listening to like If You're Feeling Sinister or something, like some of those older records, and there absolutely is like stuff about school, and the song Tricky Love Stuff for sure has a lot of that kind of element.
And it even sounds like it with that kind of title, doesn't it? It's like,
exactly.
It's the kind of thing you would say when you're sort of like 17. This tricky love stuff.
Exactly.
Maybe not now, maybe not these days. Maybe you just get a grunt. And a text on the phone. Do you feel that you're in touch with, like, I mean, you've got kids. I've got 5 myself. Do you feel that you're in touch with them most of the time, or
as much as I can be? I mean, it's kind of the nature. Yeah, exactly. It's funny to see. I mean, I think it's funny to see how maybe I'd like to believe this is true, but I think how as part of like becoming adults, we kind of go through this period where we have to distance ourselves from our parents, and so I'm really experiencing that, and that makes it does it does make it easier in a way for all parties involved to just kind of evolve and move on and become more independent, and it's bittersweet, but it's also just kind of exciting, like vicariously, and also, I mean, just music, like getting exposed to stuff, like it's funny, like even people I know who who know a lot of music, like don't really, they missed artists like Frank Ocean or whatever, and who I think is like really like one of the most important artists out there now. And I don't, I wouldn't have been exposed to that had it not been for my daughter, who's like, you need to listen to this geezer.
That's cool.
Yeah. So there's constantly stuff like that.
I'm always surprised about where music comes from these days as well.
Yeah.
I mean, my kids will play me stuff and they'll go, that's the soundtrack of a game. And
Oh,
I'm like,
yeah.
and there's some serious stuff that's being written for games, and some of it's like full orchestra, well scored, and you look down the list of the people that are playing on it and you think, this is amazing.
It is. Yeah,
absolutely
it is.
Amazing.
It
but
is.
I guess that's where I guess in a way that's where the money is.
Yeah, and it makes sense. It's sort of like, I mean, if you take that sort of really long view of the history of music, you think about people in and even before, but you think of like people in medieval towns playing a lute or something and throwing coins at them or chicken or whatever, and it just kind of musicians, artists will follow wherever the money is, and will do interesting things. I think the same thing was true of like, in the early 2000s, I was doing a lot of music for film and TV, and there was really interesting music that was being made there. So you kind of, I think that's just and musicians and artists need to adapt to that and figure out ways to keep it interesting. And it's not always a good thing, but it usually there is a good thing there somewhere.
Yeah,
right.
It's definitely something I've talked about a lot on this program with musicians, is how musicians are evolving into finding different ways of getting their art out there.
Yeah.
And I think that's important, whether it's releasing like Christian Hirsch has done, releasing it as a book and then giving the music away with the book. Or we've had other people on here who have released an album coinciding with an art exhibition.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and also, I mean, and Kristen Hirsch's, I guess, half sister Tanya Donnelly has done. She's made some really great records that are children's music. It's just, I don't know. There's all kinds of different things that people are doing. And it even like down to, I think it's interesting how people are what an album means in 2022 or 2023. Gotta think about that.
But we've lost it. So what, you don't have to write checks anymore.
Exactly. Yeah.
Remember those days?
Oh, yeah, I saw this great cartoon where this is like people looking back like they were like in ancient Roman days, and they've got these quills, they got cloaks on, and one guy says, I keep forgetting to write, I keep forgetting to correct myself when I write BC. I need to like take that off. It's just kind of funny, but yeah, that's easier seen than explained.
Before checks, wasn't it?
Exactly. Yeah. But yeah, but it's interesting to me. I have a nephew who is actually just moved back to New York. He was living in London for a while, and his band just released an album. And I think he still loves the idea of albums, but all of his friends are like, just put it out as a bunch of singles. Don't, nobody cares about albums anymore aside from artists. I don't know if that's true, but I just think it's interesting that that's that people. I actually think it's fascinating that people are still interested in albums. I was kind of expecting that would go away. I mean, not and I guess I'm of a certain vintage where I do love albums.
Well, I think musicians will always be interested in albums.
I think so. I think so.
And therefore I think albums are always going to get produced.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting hearing from different musicians of different generations these days as to the importance that's put onto that. Certainly a lot of the younger musicians are sort of the mind of, let's work it out single by single, etc.
Right.
Rather than necessarily go for the album. And I can kind of understand that. But then I guess when it's at a point where you have something more to say than you can fit into, unless you're the Orb.
Yeah, exactly.
A single. I loved it when that single came out. What was it? 31 point or whatever it was minutes long. It was the maximum you could produce before it was called an album.
Yeah,
in one song.
Well, which is funny because I've heard that Spotify will, anything that is 30 minutes will qualify as an album. So you can release an album if it's 30 minutes. And then on the other side of that coin, you actually have a friend who has a God, I feel like I should Google the name of his book just to plug it. But a guy named Mike Errico, who he wrote a book called Music, Lyrics, and Life: A Field Guide for the Advancing Songwriter, which is a lot more.
Sounds like my kind of book. Yeah,
it's a great book, and he plays lead guitar. He's on the Gramercy Arms record, and he's an old friend of mine. He's an amazing musician. And he teaches songwriting at NYU and Yale and I don't know, a bunch of other places. And he's sort of advising younger musicians to just like, hey, you get monetized on something that's 30 seconds. So maybe you should, your songs really don't need to be much longer than 30 seconds. Just like kind of, I love that idea. It's like shorter than Wire. I guess like I remember there was some band in the 90s that was
Napalm Death.
Exactly. Well, yes. Among that's not exactly the one I was thinking of, but that's totally
that sort of thing, where it's like, Wah!
Yeah, exactly.
That was a song.
Yeah. But
that's a really interesting theory, isn't it? That's
yeah.
I mean, it is. It's fascinating. It's almost like, I wonder what would happen if you actually just tried to produce those core little soundbite moments of a song, the ones that you could monetize, but didn't have anything around it.
I think some of his students have tried it. So
have they tried it?
Yeah. I think it's out there. But they're going to have to write 100 songs to have it be an album.
Yeah. I almost felt at one stage that a band like They Might Be Giants was trying to do that.
And I don't know. I always think about Wire or the Minutemen. Just condensing things down to really short bits. Like I think Game Theory kind of did that a little bit. They had like really, really tight kind of snippets of songs. But what was I going to say? There's something. Oh, about well, this idea of artists getting interested in albums, which I think is fascinating. Like I love the sort of early kind of psychedelic period, or that kind of the beginnings of krautrock, prog rock, all these and all the experiments gone wrong, and and you can really see artists that are kind of starting to embrace this new format. But if you think back to that time, I mean, like even the Rolling Stones, like I think the first, they didn't really become an album band, till I think about like 3 or 4 albums into their career, because I mean, you hear the stories about, they would just be on tour and be like, oh, we have a chance to record in Philly, let's do that, and let's record a couple songs. And the Smiths kind of, at least seemed to be sort of a singles band at one point. And I mean, their career wasn't that long, but I don't know, is that true? I kind of had the sense that they definitely, by the time, certainly like Queen is Dead, you've got like really embracing an album, but focused on at least releasing things in sort of smaller bits. I don't know.
I think Johnny Marr was always a guy looking for the next sound, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Or the next thing, which is what made their music so exciting.
Yeah.
That he was always trying to break what he'd done before to some extent.
Yeah, and well, I mean, him too, like just the ability to hear layers of sound. I mean, that some of those kind of iconic songs are just, you break them down, they're like 4 tracks. I mean, and of course he can play it live, and it works, but just it's really masterful.
Yeah, it's fantastic. It's fantastic to see him out and about again with the Killers, and taking over and playing live again, doing his own stuff, and some of the Smith stuff as well, which is great. So in terms of this album, do you have any favorites?
Well, I guess I mean, in different ways. Yesterday's Girl was just it was a pleasure to write and create, and the way that all of that came through, it was just a nice thing, because it was a song that Lloyd Cole and I had written for Darlene Love. We had a friend who was working with Miami Steve Van Zant on her record, and he's like, hey, we need some songs, and we need songs for a woman who's in her 80s. Like a lot of the stuff we're getting isn't really appropriate, and would you like to take a crack at that? And so Lloyd and I did, and worked that song up, and then we submitted it, and heard, the guy's like, yeah, thanks, this is a great song, but turns out Bruce wrote all the songs, so we're kind of set, like Bruce Springsteen. So it's like, okay, that's fine. We lost that. But then the song started sitting around.
You didn't really have a chance. Once Bruce, he called his old buddy, and Bruce went, I'm doing it.
Yeah, exactly. All right, man. And Lloyd and I are huge Bruce fans, so we were just like, if you're gonna miss out to somebody, that's fine.
That's okay.
Yeah, we'll take that. And then we retooled the song, and what was really fun was working with Ray Ketchum, who produced the record. He just suggested this woman, Renee LeBoux, come in and sing the vocal, and she did an amazing job. And then from there, actually, Lloyd loved it so much that the two of, I mean, I've been on most of Lloyd's probably like last 10, right? I've lost track, but Renee and I sang backups on the record. She does have a very unique voice. So that was really fun. And then another song that was just really cool, just the way it came together, was I Hope We're Not Too Late, which was just a really great collaboration with my dear old friend Kevin March, and he and I wrote it years ago, and just kind of didn't really do anything with it, and just kind of came together in the studio with Claudia Chopek on violin, and Sean Eden, who plays in Luna, on guitar. And that was just a really fun, unexpected kind of moment in the studio. So those are my two favorites from that record, I guess. But and then actually the other one too, I think that was just really fun, was Passing Through, which what my friend Mark Lazat, who was in Diesel, just, he's such a talented, just wonderful musician, and I gave him just like 2 or 3 tracks and said, have at it, and he just made it into what it is. It's just a really magical song, and
that's always fun, isn't it?
Yeah, that's
always fun when someone takes something and you're not, it's there, but
yeah,
it turns into something else. that's
Yeah.
even more special. That's a lovely thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, note to self, I need to keep sending Mark music. um, yeah, I think he has a studio in Tasmania, I think, where he just, which makes it all the more exotic. He's in Tasmania cooking up these. I imagine him with capes and hats, like
Yeah,
the wizard of Tasmania.
yeah. Oh, this could be another sort of Bernino.
Ah, there you go. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Just like, hey, finish my album.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
I always think that's a great way to work. I'll just start it, you just finish it.
Yeah. Exactly. Well, it's like, yeah. It's kind of I don't know if you've watched it. Well, have you seen the cartoon, the making of the album Berlin with David Bowie and Eno, and
Yeah.
it's so good. David. It's a little piece I've created. So good.
Yeah. And he just takes it and runs. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
I think that's the important thing, really. Actually, when
Yeah.
you collaborate in a way, is that it is a proper collaboration. That it's not necessarily just someone coming in and doing doing what's already there.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
got it when it sounds best is when someone else is actually finishing off someone else's work, or
Yeah.
taking the outline of something and making it into something.
Yeah. Yeah.
proper.
And it's funny that, to me, one of my favorite examples of that, and it just sounds like it's happening in real time when you're listening to it. Maybe it didn't work that way, but Satellite of Love, where it starts off as a Lou Reed song and then it's a Bowie song at the end.
Exactly.
Here it is. Yeah. And he comes in with that, satellite, it's just, oh my God, it's amazing.
Yeah, it just feels like it's like, there was a thing there, but then the energy came into the room.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
took
Yeah.
over.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's great.
Absolutely. Dave,
Yeah.
it's been an absolute pleasure meeting you and
likewise.
talking to you about music.
Yeah.
If people want to listen to Set Down, is it out now? Is it available right as we speak?
The full album is not available yet, but it will be very shortly, especially
Register your interest, folks. Register your interest.
Yeah, no, especially we'll be in the UK. I think in 11 days or so it will be it's just kind of like I don't know exactly how that's working, but I'm working with my friend Tom from Reveal, who's going to be helping to promote the record in the UK. But worldwide, it will be available. The full album will be available February 15th, so mid-February. But second single is coming out on January 15th. But you can listen with Gramercy Arms music.com. We'll be adding more stuff on Spotify as the album comes out, and also on SoundCloud. There's some links there. So actually, kind of speaking about what we were saying earlier, we're just trying an experiment of just releasing some singles, and there's a video coming out for Tricky Love Stuff, which is the second single. It's coming out in a few days.
Is that an art type video or
Yes.
Yeah.
It's an animation. It's a collaboration with an animator I met through the internet, and very excited about that. But yeah, that'll be very soon. Yeah, that's
God bless the internet and all who sail in her.
Indeed. So Graham, where are you based in the UK?
I'm based in a lovely place called Chard in Somerset.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah, you've been to the West Country.
I have.
You sampled the cider.
I have. Yeah. Indeed.
You know that it's deadly.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, that's beautiful country there for sure.
Yeah. Well, I'm about 20-30 minutes from Lyme Regis and the sea.
Oh, beautiful! Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's joyous. And my nearest cider mill is 10 minutes down the road.
Wow.
There you go.
Yeah.
Where they make good old fashioned cider, just the way that it has always been made.
And I imagine it's one of those things too, where it's just, the fresher the better. I imagine you can get the, like.
Oh, it's like fish, isn't it?
Yeah,
It's like and sorry if you don't eat fish, but if you do, then it's absolutely true. I mean, if you go down to, in fact, at Lyme Regis, sorry, music fans, but we're going on to food.
Talking about fish.
Yeah. There's a van. There's a van at Lyme Regis called Herbie's.
Yeah.
And they do, so rather than your traditional fish and chips, they do freshly caught, freshly grilled mackerel and chips.
Whoa.
Right. And it literally has been caught, and they have the time up as to when it was caught.
Oh my God. That sounds so good. I feel like I should be doing a Norwegian accent. It's like Peter Cook, like I talk about the fish.
Yeah. But I think with anything like that, I think if it hasn't traveled, then it's superb. So listen, are you likely to bring yourself over to the UK at any point?
I'd love to. Probably actually it'll be a while. Probably I'm hoping
on the hunt for UK musicians to take part
summertime. I already got some, and that's kind of half the reason. It's sort of the extended family across the pond.
There you go.
Yeah.
So
that would be fun.
Well, what you need to do is to get some people from the Bristol area in, right?
Yeah.
So let's think of very quickly before you leave. Let's just think of some people that you could perhaps approach. So you could go for Massive Attack.
Oh, I mean, yeah, Bristol is just
right. Portishead.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's a voice, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot going on in Bristol for sure. And also one of my favorite internet comedies, the High Renaissance Man. I don't know if you've ever seen that. It's about this sort of toff who goes to Bristol, and it's pretty funny. It's funny.
Yeah. No, there's some great stuff on the internet these days.
Yeah.
There's some tosh as well. But there you go.
Yeah.
But Dave, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you.
Absolutely.
Do go and check out the album. Thanks very much for Dave coming to talk to us today. And we will speak to you again sometime soon, maybe in sometime later in the year.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Do subscribe to my music on any of the channels that you're finding yourself on, and if you've enjoyed this, do tell your friends so that they can listen to us waffle on for 42 minutes as well. Until next time, it's been me, Graham Cave, and Dave Darby.
All right.
Bye for now.
Thank you, Graham.